Hello and welcome to the Primary Science, History and Geography Induction training. My name is Megan Latchford and I'm a design lead at Art Curriculum Plus. It's really great to have everyone here and we're super excited to share these resources with you. Hopefully you'll come away from today's session feeling really confident with how to access, use and adapt these resources. So what you'll know by the end of this session: the pedagogical approaches taken by geography, history and science programmes, what resources are included in each of the programmes, how to access the resources on Oxford OWL, and how to teach them effectively and make them successful in your classroom.
So what is Art Curriculum Plus? Art Curriculum Plus is an organisation at the forefront of implementing research-based pedagogy and academic excellence. You're probably most familiar with the Maths Mastery programme, but we also have our science, history and geography programmes, and more recently, primary English and secondary. Take a moment to read our mission. Essentially, children and young people are at the centre of what we do. Our mission is always something we consider when designing training and lesson resources, and as former teachers, we, like you, want to ensure success for all pupils regardless of their starting places. Just as great teachers are essential to great schools, great curriculum design is essential to great teaching. Effective curriculum design is a complex undertaking, however, requiring specialist expertise. Effective curriculum design that is deliberate and well structured also takes considerable time to achieve. Now more than ever, after COVID-19, this time is needed back by teachers to concentrate on teaching, diagnosing and addressing knowledge gaps. Art Curriculum Plus aims to support the quality of teaching and curriculum planning by shifting the focus of teachers' use of time to ensure that it is effectively spent in order to help education recovery. I'm going to briefly go through the curriculum journey that we've been through over the years. For years, we'd all been aware there'd been a narrowing of the curriculum in favour of English and maths, and so broadening the curriculum with a renewed focus on the foundation subjects was a matter of social justice, and the primary science, history and geography resources became an idea. We had teachers seconded from school to lead in the work and design and create the initial units. And in 2019, the pilot launched with 15 art primary schools in 3 year groups, Year 1, 3 and 4. In 2020, we expanded very rapidly, moving into Year 2, Year 5 and Year 6, so we covered all year groups. 4 more ARC schools started using the programmes, and we had 10 schools from outside the network, which more than doubled our number of pilot schools. In 2021, the pilot was extended and more than 100 schools were used in the programmes. The success of the programme has been recognised in our partnership with Oxford University Press in 2022. The Art Curriculum Plus resources today provide school with a knowledge-rich curriculum in the form of an easy-to-implement programme designed to support all educators regardless of subject specialism. And now the redeveloped resources are publication ready and all units will be available on Oxford OWL for the start of the 2023 academic year. The redeveloped resources were based on teacher feedback, and this is a constant work in progress. Here is an example of an original Year 1 history activity. Feedback across the subjects was that activities were pitched too high, with too much of a focus on just writing skills. Whilst we haven't taken away writing activities, this is an example, in the redeveloped materials, of how the pitch of the activity has been adapted for pupils based off that teacher feedback. Another example is this Year 5 unit, Asia, Mountains, Volcanoes and Earthquakes. Here is the original text, which covered 2 A4 pages without an activity break. In the redeveloped materials, the text is still super knowledge and vocabulary rich, where pupils learn through reading, but the reading has been trimmed into more accessible segments which are surrounded by discussions and activities. Again, these resources are not a final product but a constant work in progress based on teacher and school feedback. This is what makes them so exciting, and while we'd always love to hear your even better if alongside your what went wells. Research suggests that the teacher makes a difference and that high quality teaching is the best way to ensure the best outcomes for all students. So how does primary science, geography and history support quality first teaching? A planned curriculum means teachers can spend more time preparing for their students' needs. Unit planning guidance gives practical tips on how to teach and adapt every stage of the lesson. Lesson materials are carefully designed for all students to access. Careful sequencing enables teachers to build knowledge and skills over time. Plenty of formative assessment is built in, for example, knowledge quizzes and exit tickets in science. A consistent structure is used each lesson to enable more focus on the content. And the workbooks provide plenty of scope to challenge your highest attaining students, and stretch tasks are available in every lesson. And now I'll quickly go through our underpinning principles of the programmes. The science, history and geography programmes should inspire and motivate pupils. Each subject should develop rich and connected substantive and disciplinary knowledge that supports subject-specific thinking. All students, regardless of background, can be supported to access the core knowledge through quality first teaching. All teachers, regardless of experience or specialism, can be supported to develop their pedagogy and to deliver lessons with high expectations to get the best out of all students. The curriculum should support students to progress competently through each year group and key stage. And the curriculum meets the national curriculum requirements and guidance using rigorous, knowledge-rich content. We make no apologies for science, history and geography being knowledge-rich. Our resources have been redeveloped from our pilot resources to ensure they are as knowledge-rich as possible, that pupils can learn through reading, but they are accessible and pitched appropriately for that year group. Knowledge is a building block for all cognitive skills, as these quotes demonstrate. I'll give you a moment to read through them. I'm going to give you 1 minute here to take a moment to write down a personal response on paper to the question, why is a knowledge-rich curriculum important? There are many geography, history and science programmes out there, but the ARC Curriculum Plus resources offer more than just downloadable documents and slides. We offer a clear progression through each subject area, cross-curricular links, and a mapped out, well-sequenced curriculum alongside the knowledge-rich, carefully designed activities and lesson slides. Each unit spans a half term with 6 lessons. The spring term unit spans a full term with 10 lessons. Each lesson has been planned for a 2-hour duration. This is an important consideration to be mindful of. If you have more or less time than 2 hours, which is the recommended time for schools for all the subjects, you will need to adapt the resources accordingly. At ARC Curriculum Plus, we believe that individual disciplines should be viewed in their own right and as separate subjects, but where there are connecting ideas across subjects, those connections will be made and taught. I'm going to talk through an example of the substantive knowledge, the facts and knowledge pupils learn, that you can find in history with supporting links in geography and science. Substantive knowledge in history is sequenced the facts and ideas increase in complexity throughout the years, as well as being supported by cross-curricular links to geography and science. In Year 2, pupils study the unit The Great Fire of London at the same time as science, use of materials, so pupils can understand the cause of the Great Fire of London with their knowledge of different types of materials from the science unit. Pupils then go on to study the unit Kings and Queens. Pupils are first introduced to the concept of a monarch in Unit 1 with Charles II, which serves as an introduction to Unit 2, where pupils study a range of both female and male monarchs. The history unit, People Who Made a Difference, investigates significant people from across the world, for example Nelson Mandela, Malala Yousafzai and Rosa Parks. For this unit, pupils would have gained a deeper understanding of the world's continent and countries through the geography unit, Planet Earth, which would in turn allow them to understand the range of nationalities within the history, People Who Made a Difference unit. The unit Europe, including a modern-day study of Rome, which is the last unit of Year 3, prepares pupils for studying Romans and Roman invasions in Britain in the autumn term of Year 4. This in turn supports pupil understanding of invasions of Britain and England in the history units Anglo-Saxons and Scots in Year 5s and Viking in Year 5. And then moving on to conflict and resolution, which is based on World War I and II in Year 6. Pupils will build on the disciplinary and substantive concepts listed here throughout their time in primary. I'm going to focus in on the substantive concept of invasion and show you a few examples of how pupils are first introduced to the concept and how they build on their knowledge in depth and complexity throughout the years. Pupils first learn about invasion in Year 2, Unit 2, Lesson 2, when they learn about the monarch William the Conqueror and his invasion of England in the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Pupils then learn about invasion in Year 4 in the units The Romans and Roman Britain and how and why there were multiple attempts with successes and failures to invade Britain. This understanding of invasion is then built on in Year 5 Unit 1, where pupils learn about the various invasions of Britain once the Romans had left. We then move through time chronologically and visit invasion again in Year 5 Unit 2, where the whole unit is centred around the Enquiry Question, were the Vikings just invaders? People study Viking invasions, raids and settlements to answer the question. Moving outside of British history, pupils' understanding of invasion supports the unit, Unit 3, when pupils learn how Islam's golden age came to an end in part by learning about the Mongol invasion. Pupils continue to build on their knowledge of invasion in Year 6, where they study the conquest of Alexander the Great. And finally, pupils study the concept of invasion in modern history through both the threat of invasion and invasion in both World War I and World War II. To quickly recap, those are just a few examples within the substantive concept of invasion, and each lesson and each unit deepens the complexity of the concept. There are plenty more connections where pupils build on their knowledge just for invasion, but also pupils will build on knowledge for all the disciplinary and substantive concepts listed here throughout the years.
Thank you for staying with us so far on this induction journey. Now I'm going to talk you through all the resources and activity types you'll find within the programmes and how to easily access them and download them from the new platform Oxford OWL.
All of the primary science, geography and history resources will be available to access and download from the Oxford OWL website that many of you know from Read, Write, Ink Phonics by the start of the academic year 2023. All of the pilot resources currently on My Mastery will be removed from the 31st July 2023. Okay, now I'm going to run through how easy it is to access the resources through Oxford OWL. Log in via the home page and make sure you've selected Teacher, not Student. Click on Subscriptions and the subject that you want to visit. History and Key Stage 1 will also be here for the start of the academic year. You can find options for ordering workbooks here and viewing resources for the other two subjects, in this case history and science. Click on View the available resources and you are taken to the resource page. You can navigate using the search button, drop-down option for year group, resource types and units. Here you can find all the resources for that subject. You can also find the ebook version of the workbook that can be opened online. And to access the resources, just click Download. There is no set structure for every lesson. However, the following activities will be used. Knowledge quizzes at the start of every lesson. Talk tasks to give pupils opportunities for discussion. Read sections so pupils learn through reading. Write activities, where pupils write a response. Retrieval activities, based on new learning. Group task activities, where pupils are given the opportunity to collaborate. Fieldwork activities in geography. Investigation activities in geography, history and science. Exit questions in science. And inquiry questions in history and geography. I'm going to talk you through adaptation of these resources. Whilst we want to avoid plug and play, where teachers essentially plug the lesson in and hit play without any prior preparation, we want to dispel the other misconception that everything needs differentiating to be successful. Adapting the resources should be in response to what your pupils in your classroom need, and that won't be for every single slide. Here's how the resources support this adaptation. Teachers are supported in meeting individual learning needs of their students. The curriculum, CPD, assessment, guidance and classroom resources support teachers to identify gaps in understanding and address misconceptions. Key knowledge is clearly identified, highlighting for teachers the essential knowledge that all learners must retain. Unit preparation guidance supports teachers to plan for the needs of their pupils. Lesson activities are provided at a range of challenging levels, with guidance provided for teachers suggesting how activities may be further adapted to ensure all students can access them and be successful. Diagnostic checks based upon key misconceptions are embedded into every lesson programme, and these ensure that misconceptions are picked up by the teacher routinely and are used to inform the review of key content in subsequent lessons. Our curriculum should be responsive. All pupils should be successful and inspired, and teachers should feel supported in achieving this. Less time spent on creating slides, researching the key knowledge, and formatting tricky resources gives teachers more time to think of how they will teach that lesson and what adaptations may need to be made. This may include adapting a lesson for the entire class if a previous concept wasn't learnt. This might be supporting individuals who have lower attainment in reading or writing. And this might be in challenging pupils, asking them further questions to get them thinking about the topic at a deeper level. Here you can see an activity from Year 3 Geography. And here is an adapted version. Take a moment to jot down how this activity has been adapted. Key information to support answering the activity has been highlighted in the text, and the activity has been partially completed so pupils are set up for success. These adaptations have been made simply from snipping and copying sections of the ebook workbook onto a Word document and making the necessary changes. Here is another activity from Year 3 Geography, and here is the adapted version. Take a moment to jot down or think how this activity has been adapted. An image has been added of the local river pupils visited. This could be to give pupils more time focused on labelling rather than drawing. Keywords and boxes have been given to pupils to support with their writing and steer them towards the key knowledge they should be looking for. Every lesson is designed to be 2 hours long. Some schools may not have this time in their timetable, although 2 hours of the week has been recommended for schools for all subjects. Or some weeks there may be disruptions in timetables such as trips and events, etc. In that case, lessons may need to be adapted in length. The key knowledge is the knowledge pupils need to have learnt that lesson and is a guiding point for adapting a lesson. While all activities are centred around this key knowledge, you may consider some activities to be less vital to understanding the key knowledge than others. For example, here are 2 activities from this lesson. What is the function of the human skeleton in Year 3? The first activity is support for the second activity. However, if there were time constraints, which activity might you trim? Here, I have suggested the first activity is trimmed and the second is kept, as the second activity includes knowledge from the first and meets the first key knowledge point in greater depth. Please note, ideally all activities are kept within a lesson to support progression within the lesson itself and the unit. This isn't just in case the lesson needs to be trimmed down from the 2-hour time slot. Now I'm going to talk through the programme resources themselves. Our long-term resources provide fine-grained mapping of student learning journey from Year 1 to Year 6, and there is a support offer to be confirmed. At a unit level, we provide unit narratives and accompanying topic-specific professional development for teachers. At a lesson level, we provide ready-to-use, editable classroom materials, including detailed teacher guidance. Guidance for differentiated learning tasks for struggling students and those that need extension are also included. We also provide embedded, diagnostic, formative and summative assessments at a unit and lesson level. We provide discovery box cards and posters, which are given as PDFs and can be downloaded and printed by teachers. The posters can be part of your working wall display in your classroom. Discovery box cards are full of interesting facts about the unit pupils are about to learn and lots of engaging activities. These could be sent home before a unit begins to engage pupils for the upcoming unit. All pupils will have access to a knowledge organiser. They include a glossary and the key information from that unit. These can be printed out from Oxford Owl. You can send these home for people to study, or you can attach them to their workbooks. Before a unit begins, teachers can download an editable subject knowledge guide that explains what they need to know to successfully teach their unit. This covers all the key knowledge pupils will learn, as well as extended knowledge for in-depth comprehension of that topic. There is one document per unit, which has everything in one place, making it easy to access and use. The unit planning guidance is a single editable document that comes with every unit for each of the subjects. It's where the teacher can read through every detail of each lesson within a unit. It provides guidance on how to teach each step of the lesson and instructs teachers on when to use any additional resources provided. Each step of the lesson is clearly bullet pointed, and the notes that section have been transferred to the notes section of the corresponding slide. This means you can constantly engage with the unit planning guidance and not have two separate documents open or waste time copying and pasting the notes into the slides themselves, as it's all been done for you. At the start of each lesson, the unit planning guidance provides a breakdown of the key elements of that lesson. We have sections for the disciplinary concepts of the lesson so teachers can engage with them, as well as key term and key takeaway. We have a list of key vocabulary that pupils can be taught at the start of the lesson, which will support their understanding of the reading texts. These elements provide teachers with a full understanding of what the most key information, message and learning of that lesson is. We bullet point the key knowledge so teachers can feel really confident knowing what the most important elements of each lesson is. This means the lessons are more accessible to more schools and pupils, as not everyone has time for those 2 hours we already discussed. Knowing the key learning enables teachers to edit the lesson to fit their timetables or weeks without cutting that learning out. The physical workbooks are really valuable tools both for pupil engagement and teacher planning. They give time back for planning how to teach and any adaptations. Ebook versions of every workbook are also available, which are great tools if you want to snip and copy a section onto a slide or make any adaptations to tasks like we previously looked at. There is one workbook for the whole academic year of that subject, with all the units inside. The only difference is Key Stage 1 Science, which has one workbook per term, so a total of 3. Here you can see Science 1A, 1B and 1C, 2A, 2B and 2C. Every lesson starts with a knowledge quiz, except for lesson 1 of each unit. The knowledge quiz is designed to only test the knowledge from the previous lesson, hence why lesson 1 doesn't include a quiz. The final lesson of the unit has 2 quizzes, one at the start to test previous learning, and one at the end to test that lesson's learning. The quiz questions are also part of the teacher slides, so they can be done as a class, done one by one, read through as a class and completed independently, or done entirely independently. Answers are also included in the teacher slides for pupils to mark themselves or peer mark. At the start of the workbook, you can find the knowledge quiz score chart below the contents. Each quiz has a name. This quiz is 1.1 because it is Unit 1 and Quiz 1 of 6. All pupils need to do is find the matching quiz name on the score chart and input their results. This allows pupils and teachers to access learning and retainment from lesson to lesson. The workbook design for Key Stage 1 is slightly different. So this means that knowledge quizzes, therefore, are not part of the workbook, but come as separate printable booklet, with a score chart included. The questions and answers for Key Stage 1 are still part of the teacher slides. Let's have a look at the teaching slides. Pupils are exposed to the new key term at the start of every lesson. At the start of each lesson, the slides for history and geography follow the same pattern. Science has the same pattern over its units at the start of each lesson too. It's just slightly different from the other subjects. Pupils are exposed or reminded of the unit's inquiry question in history and geography. This inquiry question guides the whole unit and is the focus point of all the knowledge being taught or learnt, so it's important we don't skip this slide out. Pupils are then reminded of the lesson sequence to understand where their learning journey is taking them and where they've already been. Pupils are then given the lesson statement so they can understand the purpose of this lesson. The key term is then given to pupils and defined. And finally, pupils are given the lesson's key knowledge points and are exposed to the key vocabulary of that lesson. Every lesson includes knowledge-rich text, which has been carefully pitched for that year group. Some of the text is included in the workbook to match the workbook activities. Some text, which isn't directly related to the workbook-specific activity, has been kept for slides only. The key vocabulary pupils would have been exposed to at the start of the lesson are highlighted in bold in the first instance they are used, as you can see here. There are many ways that teachers could read through the text. One example is teacher-led. The teacher reads as pupils read along, either in workbooks or from the screen. However, there are more engaging options such as partner reading, jump-in reading, volunteer reading, etc. that we would recommend. And we would recommend any strategies you use in English reading lessons when pupils are encountering a new text to be used for these sections. The amount of reading and the complexity of the text is dependent on the year group. For example, this is the difference between a Year 5 lesson and a Year 1 lesson. Every lesson will have at least one talk task. Talk tasks are designed to encourage discussion and collaboration. Most commonly, a talk task will be between two partner pupils, although there may be times the teacher feels a larger group discussion would work for that particular topic. The teacher should use whatever class or school routines they have in place for these discussions. In this Year 2 geography lesson, the teacher uses partner A and partner B work during talk tasks. She also uses think, pair and share for every talk task, where pupils are given time to think of their own answer before talking to their partner and then feeding back as a whole class. She also uses oracy strategies from Voice 21 in her lessons, and you are encouraged to use any strategies you have for oracy from your school in these lessons also. Nearly every lesson will have at least one group task. Group tasks, like talk tasks, are designed to encourage discussion and collaboration. However, unlike talk tasks, which will mostly just be discussion-based, a group task will be an activity for pupils to engage in. The size of groups will depend entirely on the classroom setup and the group work teachers have already practiced with their class or are working on. This could be a group of 3 or a collective group of tables, so up to 6. Retrieval tasks are part of most lessons and are a great way of assessing knowledge pupils have just learnt while practicing skills in their English reading lesson. If a task is retrieval, it means pupils have been given the answer already, perhaps inside the reading text or a diagram. Pupils should use these resources to find the answers. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to jot down how would you prepare to teach a retrieval task like this? What will this look like in your classroom? and what adaptations could be made. Well, there's no right answer for how to adapt a specific task because tasks should be adapted with pupils in mind. Here are some examples that I came up with. Highlighting key information in the text, partially completing the activity, and adding an extension challenge question. A right task is a task where pupils may need to infer an answer, write an extended answer, create a diagram, write down data, or complete a drawing. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to think, how would you prepare to teach a right task like this? What would this look like in your classroom? And what adaptations could be made? Again, there are no right answers for how you adapt for your class, but some ideas may have included pictures as support, sentence stems, and word banks. In science, pupils complete investigation activities. Sometimes this will be like a group task, and sometimes this will be a scientific investigation. Here is an example of an investigation from Year 6, Unit 5. When preparing for an investigation, the unit planning guidance has all the instructions and list of resources needed to be successful. We highly recommend reading through the unit planning guidance before the start of each unit to plan ahead for when these investigations will be. There are investigation activities in history and geography also, which are both group tasks where pupils are expected to work collaboratively to investigate a source or information or image to make inferences and answer questions. Here is an example from History, Year 6, Unit 2, Conflict and Resolution, where pupils should investigate the World War I propaganda poster to answer the questions on the left. In these examples, as you can see, answers are provided. Geography lessons will include some fieldwork activities. In this unit, in Year 6, pupils would have been planning geographical fieldwork of their local area before this stage. To prepare for any fieldwork activities, we recommend reading through the unit planning guidance to understand the expectations of the unit and lessons. Where possible, plan what fieldwork pupils will be doing by undertaking the fieldwork yourself. Reading through the unit planning guidance at the start of each unit will prepare you for when these opportunities arise. At the very end of every history and geography unit, pupils will answer the inquiry question that all the learning of that unit is centred around. They will have been exposed and reminded of this inquiry question at the start of each lesson, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. There will be an inquiry question support document for teachers with an overview of the key knowledge of that unit and guidance on how to set up the inquiry question assessment and a potential planning template and guiding questions. It is up to the school or class teacher on how they wish pupils to answer this question. This could be an extended write, could be a poster, presentation, quiz, or question paper, and so on. Take a moment here to jot down, do you currently assess history and geography? And what might this look like in your classroom? There is one progression document per subject. The progression documents include the subject and unit-specific concepts, knowledge and skills for each lesson, and unit in a sequence from Year 1 to 6. Inside, you can find all the lessons in every unit for that subject from 1 to 6. For each lesson, you get the lesson question, the lesson disciplinary and substantive concepts, the lesson key term, the lesson key takeaway, and the overall unit national curriculum links. Information on the aims of that programme, detail on the subject, substantive and disciplinary concepts, and further information on national curriculum links can also be found at the start of the document. Take a couple of minutes here to write down your key takeaways from today's session. Here are our key takeaways from today's session. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read through them and make note of any you haven't jotted down already. Okay, one key takeaway I want to just point out is the final bullet point. Some resources are being finalised, but everything will be ready for September. There may be a couple of resources that aren't on Oxford OWL just yet, but don't worry if you can't find them. Everything will be there and ready for you to teach in September.
So what are your next steps? Log in to Oxford OWL to access the resources. Download the resources that you will need for September and familiarise yourself with those resources. And this brings us to the end of the launch, and we do hope you feel prepared to implement the science, history and geography programmes. If you have any questions or comments, and in future any feedback, please email this email address here. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you.